The roster judge will be covered in this presentation. Items that will be covered are where to locate your instructions and supplies, understand that identification is not required at the roster table, where the oath is located on the roster, what are acceptable notations on the roster, administering the challenge process. Additional items that will be covered are where to locate the school district number on the roster, what happens if the voter signs the roster and they have moved or should be voting at a different precinct and their name was not crossed off, what is a roster correction, returning materials used on election day. Your roster judge supply bag contains the necessary instructions, forms, and voter receipts to perform this task. This is a sample of a polling place setup. The roster can be divided into sections and placed in 3 ringed binders to avoid long lines. At the voter's request, 2 election judges from different major political parties may help mark the ballot. When assisting, be sensitive to their specific needs, avoid influencing how they vote, do not give advice or reveal how they voted. Direct all questions to the voter, not to others with them. Help only as much as requested. A voter may have assistance from others of their choosing. The assistant may help the voter in the polling place, including the voting booth. The exceptions are: an agent of their employer cannot assist the voter. A union or candidate cannot assist the voter. An assistant can only physically mark ballots for a maximum of 3 voters for each election. They may provide other forms of assistance apart from physically marking the ballots. If an assistant has marked the ballot on behalf of the voter may show it to an election judge privately to confirm it is correctly marked before placing it in the tabulator. More information can be found in the election judge guide. The roster instructions are included to perform this task. Ask the voter their name and address. Ensure voter privacy. The voter is not required to show ID at the roster table. If a voter hands you their ID, and it is helpful in finding their name on the roster, feel free to use it. If you don't need the ID for any reason, hand it back to the voter. You can explain, voter ID is not required in Minnesota if you are asked why you are returning it. A roster judge should locate the voter's name on the roster. Ask the voter to state their name and address. Do not allow voters to scan through the roster pages. The roster information is private. You have been provided with a large laminated oath. It is the same oath that is printed on top of each roster page. Instruct the voter to read the oath and sign their name on the signature line. Tell the voter by signing the roster that they are attesting to the oath. The voter should sign their signature line using a black or blue pen. A roster judge can use a signature guide on the roster page to show a voter where to sign. Election judges should use a red pen if they need to make any of these notations on the roster signature lines. AB for absentee ballot, curbside, directional arrows, and crossing out a voter's signature if a voter signed on the wrong line. If you have multiple school districts in your precinct, you will need to know which school district number to record on the voter receipt. Check the school district on the roster next to the voter's name. Once the voter has signed the roster and you have determined their school district number, write the number on the receipt. Hand the receipt to the voter. Direct the voter to hand their receipt to the ballot judge. Judges only are allowed to use a red pen for the following: AB or absentee ballot, curbside, crossing out a voter's name if they signed on the wrong line, or directional arrows. The voter should use black or blue ink to sign the roster. What's wrong with this page? Number 1, informational messages should not be written on the roster lines or in the margins of the pages, such as words like moved or died. Number 2, use a red pen to make an arrow if a voter signs on the wrong line. Number 3, a voter's pre-printed name should not be crossed off. Number 4, have a black pen available for voters to use when signing the roster. Number 5, a voter's signature should not cover the barcode. And number 6, place alpha tabs along the bottom of the roster and not across the barcodes. If a voter signs the roster and then realizes the address is incorrect or they have changed their name, they will need to re-register. A roster judge must cross off the voter's signature on the roster page using a red pen. Make a note of this on the incident log. Send the voter to the Election Day registration judges. When the voter signs the Election Day registration roster, they will have appeared to have voted twice if the name was not crossed off at the roster table. If a voter signs twice on Election Day, we are required to send that information to the county attorney's office for prosecution. It is very important that you cross off their name using a red pen. Do not allow a voter to sign their name twice without crossing one off. The incident log is used to record anything that needs to be brought to the attention of Blue Earth County Elections. Make a notation on the incident log, including a full name and brief description. If you think you should write it down on the incident log, please do so. Let your head judge know of any incidents as they occur. Do not wait until the end of the day or the day after the election. At the end of the night, give your head judge your incident log. If you were lucky enough not to have any incidents, write none across the form. The word challenge may appear next to the voter's name on the signature line. This would include any of the following: challenged, postal return. The state was unable to verify their address. Challenged, name, address. The state was unable to verify their name or address. Challenged, other, or undeliverable. The post office was unable to deliver a postal verification card. Challenged, felony. The voter is serving a felony sentence and their right to vote has been removed. Challenged, guardianship. The voter is under guardianship and are not eligible to vote. An election judge shall challenge any voter with challenge printed by the voter's name on the roster signature line. A roster judge should be discreet when asking the related challenge questions. The challenge process is on a laminated sheet in your supply bag. Or, if uncomfortable, a roster judge can refer the voter to the head judge. The roster correction and notification of death forms are available in your supply bag. Your roster correction form should be used only for typos or duplicates. Do not use the correction form for any other notations. If there is a typo in the voter's name or date of birth, or there is a duplicate record, have the voter sign the roster, then a roster judge makes a notation on the roster corrections form. A voter or an election judge with knowledge that the person whose name appears on the roster is deceased can complete the notification of death form. When the polls close at 8 p.m., everyone in line gets to vote. All voting is done. Now where does everything go? These completed forms are returned in the blue bag. Give these items to the head judge: roster corrections, notification of death, incident log. Give these forms to the head judge: roster corrections, notification of death, incident log, If any of these forms are not used at the roster table, print the word "None" on one of the forms and return it in the blue bag. In your roster judge supply bag, return all items that are on the list. This includes roster judge instructions, any unused forms, any unused voter receipts. Roster judges must remove roster pages from the 3-ring binders and remove all alpha divider tabs. Place all roster pages in the blue bag. Information that was covered in the roster judge presentation included: instructions and supplies are located in the roster judge supply bag. Voters do not have to show identification at the roster table. The oath is located at the top of each roster page. Voters should read the oath before signing the roster. A laminated oath is provided and should be posted at the roster table. Voters should sign the roster using a black ink pen. An election judge should use a red pen for the following: arrows, lines through names, A-B, curbside. No other comments should be made on the voter's signature line. Additional items covered include: a roster judge must administer the challenge process if a voter has the word "challenged" on their signature line. If a roster judge is uncomfortable in administering the oath of challenge, the voter should be referred to the head judge. Always be discreet when administering the oath. If you have multiple school districts in your precinct, you will need to check the school district column on the roster to determine the school district number and write it on the voter receipt. When a voter signs the roster twice, they are investigated for voter fraud. Typos and duplicate voter information should be written on the roster correction form. Roster judges should return the rosters and completed forms in the blue bag, and the roster instructions, signs, and all unused roster items, including unused voter receipts and forms, in the judge supply bag. If you have any questions regarding this presentation or on Election Day, please contact us by phone or email.